Hi guys, it's Dr. Eric Lindquist, CEO and founder of SonoPath.com, and I'd like to invite you to pass through your surgical or commuting day in veterinary medicine by listening to our podcast, Real Talk in Veterinary Medicine, from experienced professionals who aren't afraid to tell you how things really are so you can optimize your veterinary career and your process.
So we're just doing a natural intro, we're just rolling, we're just going. Yeah, that's how the cool people do it. They just start talking. Oh yeah, I didn't see you there.
Hi everybody. Hey everybody, we're here again at SonoTalks, Real Talk in Veterinary Medicine, and we're here with Dr. Kristian Sorbo, who's European, here working in the States, and we thought he would have a really good story for SonoTalks because he tells it how it is. He's been through a number of our courses here at SonoPath, and we're really happy to have him. Kristian, how's your day going?
It's going well. I'm glad to be here, and I'm surprised you chose to add me to your what was it called?
SonoTalks.
SonoTalks.
Yeah,
But you know, I'm glad to be here. I hope I can help you create some, if not educational, at least some entertaining content.
Well, you know, we like to have people with cool accents here on SonoTalks.
Right?
So it's always nice to have a little bit of a twist on things. So
this is the first time you have someone with a Texas accent, right?
A Texas accent,
yeah. Gotcha.
I think it's Southern Northern European accent.
Somewhere in between, or actually, I think on the outskirts of those.
Yeah. So, Kristian, tell us a little bit about your story. Where are you from?
Right. So the very fast bio is I'm born and raised in Norway. So hi to all the Norwegian fans. I sort of spent most of my summers north of the Arctic Circle, working with dairy cows.
Oh.
And that's sort of what got me into the veterinary field. I moved to Scotland when I was 19, and I was at Edinburgh University, became a veterinarian in 2011, graduated, moved to England, practiced for 5 years in emergency critical care and first opinion. And then I got asked to join a clinic in Oregon, a really awesome, wonderful clinic. And I was there for a couple of years, realizing first after a couple of years how far it is from home. Mm-hmm. So moved to the East Coast and ultimately Boston, where I'm working and living and practicing veterinary medicine at the moment. And it was after I moved to Boston that I started getting some, I wouldn't say interest for ultrasound. I'm gonna be completely honest.
No, lie to us here.
Yeah, I'm gonna lie. I was really interested in ultrasound. No, I really just saw there was just I had traveling internists and traveling cardiologists coming to my clinic. Phenomenal, probably like some of the best I've ever met. But it was just the visits were too few and too far between.
Sure.
And I had a caseload that needed scanning done yesterday. Mm-hmm. So I started, I think I came and saw you in 2021 during the pandemic. And that's when we did the course here. Mm-hmm. We were like masked and shielded.
Oh, right. Yeah, those were lovely times,
right? Life vests. After I came to that course, within 8 months, I'd done almost 100 scans.
Awesome.
Diagnosed some really cool cases. My confidence curve went really high up right after, then really low, and I realized that I'd missed some of your emails saying you should do certain steps better. So then I stopped submitting to you, and I started submitting to Mac, who's nicer, and I could sleep better at night. No, and then
you're from Norway. I'm Swedish, so
yeah. I mean,
you guys always have.
When I found that out,
I get it.
Yeah, it became problematic. But so, and then I decided to do the same on the cardiac front because during the pandemic, despite being in Boston, which is a mecca for high standard medicine and veterinary medicine.
Sure.
There's a high demand, and so I decided to join the Echo bandwagon too.
Yeah.
And I'm doing your course the Echo Estebecco the second time around, because I just didn't want to just deliver. I wanted to feel confident as well. So here I
get
am.
it. I took my first Echo course 3 times to give you an idea. So it's true. And then you figure out. I mean, you even brought me a hat.
I did.
STT. Yeah. Explain to everybody what that is. What the hat's all about.
Yeah, STT. So one thing I like about your courses, and this is why I keep on coming back, is because you have made something really complicated into sort of bite-sized portions that you can actually digest. I'm going to go on with these food metaphors. And one thing two things you keep saying is it takes a slide, a twist, and a tilt. Which is basically all Michael Jackson moves, if you weren't aware. So you may be in trouble.
My moonwalk needs some work.
And after having heard you say that so many times, combined with you saying, well, this isn't evidence-based, but it is linguistics, I decided to make you a hat that says STT. It's basic linguistics. So there you go. So it's just to boost your ego, because you didn't have one.
I
did not.
I did not. And I feel my ego filled now, and I appreciate that. That's great. Yes, we Scandinavians have to sit together. Have to stick together. Sit together and stick together. Yeah, excellent. So curiosity. I mean, you're from Norway, and then you studied in Scotland, which is, I've bumped around Europe quite a bit, and I mean, even though everything is close by, the cultures are very different. So how is that as far as the step, and then how is the step from Scotland to Oregon, as far as how'd that affect your lifestyle and your practice and so forth?
Right. Well, so I'm sort of ashamed to say that I have never practiced in Norway. Only been a student. I worked with cows. I worked in small animal practice as a student. But once I graduated, I've just worked in English-speaking areas. I actually was thinking many times, like, how would I have these conversations in my native tongue? And I am having a hard time thinking, how would I say that? So I think if I ever was to move back to Norway, I would need like a few weeks just to find your standard sentences of communication.
Sure.
But I would say the biggest thing, moving when I was 19 from Norway to Scotland was a big cultural jump, although they're very close. You just have the North Sea between.
Sure.
But it was, those were formative student years.
Right.
So I think I wasn't as mindful about that.
Right.
When I moved from the UK to Oregon, that was a huge thing on so many levels.
Right.
Because number one, in the UK, and I'm not sure if this is proven to be the true psychology or whatever of the veterinary client-patient relationship, but I would say living in countries with universal healthcare, that's free.
Sure.
And then moving to
being the UK and Norway, not
and then you move to the free world, the America, the expensive free world, where everything is free for a certain dollar amount.
Yeah.
No, but what I realized first is that in Norway and the UK, there's very much a fear. I mean, there's a fear here also of cost of the veterinary services.
Sure.
But the scale is different.
Right.
Whereas and I think that's rooted in human healthcare.
Sure.
So it's like, why would I pay for this? Isn't this like rooted in our values, this service? I mean, when I work in the UK, I often get the comment, not often, but sometimes, I should be correct, not often, but sometimes we'll get the comment, I can't afford it, but you know how to do it, or you're just going to let my pet die,
Right.
Whereas that I've never heard in the US, and that's coming from working both in rural areas, in very privileged areas and not so privileged areas.
Sure.
I would say I've certainly hit many more demographics in the US than I did in the UK. But at the same time, the love and care and passion for pets as family members, that just transcends through anywhere I've been.
Right.
Yeah, there's no difference there.
Sure.
But I think it's just the perception of that. That's the biggest sort of contrast I can put out there.
Sure.
In terms of how I practice and how the medicine is, there's definitely more caution around certain areas of medicine in the US. I found classic example, meloxicam used in cats.
Sure.
You know, that's like one. Also availability of certain drugs. I was just talking to one of the other attendees here last night how I missed the product by Solven, bromhexin, to work on decongesting cats and dogs, and it's used a lot in horses, and I just can't get it here.
Right.
But on the other hand, there's stuff here that we don't have in the UK that I'm now, being very excited about using.
Right. Yeah, Peter was telling me about some work he did with, there's a combination now in Europe, an ACE inhibitor spironolactone, which is, one medication, which is great. One less pill is always great to get the same amount of medications, and we don't have that here in the States. It's like, I want to bring some back next time I go to Europe.
And some things will be available if you compound it. I mean, look at Semintra. I mean, telmisartan's been around. Right. But then Semintra, it's like, there's a new drug called Semintra. I'm like, what are you talking about? We've had it for many years in the UK. So it's just interesting. But yeah, that's a whole can of worms going into, why that is. But,
right. I mean, even crossing the border up to Canada, there's different availability. So now you're in Boston. So I was just in Boston about 10 days ago for the first time, believe it or not.
You didn't call.
I didn't call. I didn't put two together. I thought you were still in Norway. See, I'm a few countries.
You're very behind.
But I absolutely fell in love with Boston. Absolutely amazing. I found it to be, having spent a lot of time in Europe, I found it to be probably one of the best cross sections we have here in the United States between a European city and a United States city, and it makes sense because of its history and foundation. But I didn't see any tea bags on the harbor though. I was very disappointed. I was looking forward for that, and then nothing. Not one tea bag in the whole bar. Tell me about Boston. How do you like Boston? Is that your permanent spot? I mean, not put you on the. I hope your bosses aren't listening if you say it isn't. But
No, Boston is great in many ways, but Boston has a lot of, if you want to go into the, my wife's a social worker, and if you want to go into the social politics of Boston, I mean, that could be a very different conversation. Right. But as a city to practice veterinary medicine, it depends on which neighborhood you're in, but it's a city where people really value having pets. Sure. Cats, dogs. I used to see a lot of ferrets. Very popular in the city itself. And I would say where I am now, I live outside of Boston. I have an 18-month-old son, and I would say I have the best of both worlds. I get to commute in, and traffic is horrible in Boston. Anyone who's ever driven through Massachusetts is the reason why they call them massholes. We can
say that on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's also kettle in the pot. I mean, we're in New Jersey right now, but but I like it. I enjoy it. I have great clients. Do I wish maybe sometimes the weather would be better?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I have lived in Scotland, so I suppose I can handle.
Right. You should have the genetics prepared for that.
Yeah.
You keep going where there isn't any sun. I mean,
I know.
I mean, Oregon.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When I moved to Scotland, and the first time I visited my GP in Norway, he took a blood sample. I mean, we're talking Norway, like Arctic Circle country. Sure. And he said, for the first time, I need to recommend you start taking vitamin D supplements. Wow. Because it was less sun in Scotland. It was in the country where there's no sun half the year.
Right. So moving over to practicing now, you're emergency critical care, and we love to have emergency critical care people, come through our courses, because you guys always think on your feet. You're ready to pivot and change direction, and you're not waiting for things to happen. You're making things happen, and it's just a mentality. And being being a sonographer now, tell me how that's blended into, because I always say you can't mind meld the image into the screen. You have to move the probe and keep adjusting and adapting to the different presentations there, and then of course you have to move around with needles in hand and not be afraid to stick things and to be an optimal sonographer. So what's your position on that, coming over from emergency critical care and now picking up a probe and living by the probe?
Yeah, so small correction, I am in first opinion practice.
Oh, okay.
But I used to be
emergency.
But I would say, full disclosure, I have worked with bad ultrasound equipment in the past, with bad ultrasound interpretation skills. Yeah, well. And still gotten the job done. Right. And maybe sometimes I didn't get the job done. Sure. And that is, it's not a joke, it's not funny, but it was just what I had. I was out in a place where referral wasn't possible. I got to just roll up my sleeves and try and, save an animal. Right. And more times than not, we were successful, and very grateful for that. Now, with better equipment and the knowledge that I have from doing all the work with you and with textbooks, but mainly from me here, it really allows me three things. Number one, quick diagnostics. Number two, quick resolve a presentation if it is something I can resolve there and then. But number three, actually there's a fourth one, but I'll get to that in a minute. But number three is I'm going to offer my clients a one-stop shop service. Sure. And when they bring a sick animal or they're worried about their animal to me, I think honestly, sometimes being told I'm sending you across the town to see someone else is almost just as disappointing. Sure. As it is to not knowing what's going on, like even if you have a suspicion. So sure. My clients just value it a lot. Sure. But the fourth one is that I value it. I feel a much greater achievement by being able to do that.
Right, it all makes sense, and you have to believe your modality. If you believe your modality that you're going to do the right thing with it, then your clients are going to feed off of you. They know if you believe in something or not, or if you're just slinging hash. They know the difference, and they come to you for a reason. And I'm a great believer in that. Well, I'd like to applaud you on your journey, your geographical and your career journey, and you've done amazing work, and it's satisfying for us to see that happen. So thanks for dropping in once again. Doors always open, and thanks for joining the SonoTalks and being real about it.
Well, I'm excited to be here. I've never been on such a big acclaimed show before, so it's really big for me. Yeah.
All right, great, thank you. Let's enjoy the rest of your time here, and we'll see you in Boston.
Thank you.
All right.
This is actually the first time I'm on a podcast.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. I know, it surprises me too. But you've been a little lax on your dad jokes this time around.
Yeah, well, I wasn't lecturing as much. Wait till tomorrow. I still got a couple hours tomorrow. So.
No, fun fact, I only give him one a day.
Yeah.
You know when a joke becomes a dad joke?
What's that?
When it becomes a parent.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. I've done that.
Terrible,
one.
right?
Yeah, it's horrible.
This is going on the
We're using
bloopers, I'm
that.
sorry.
I'm in.
Okay, that means you can't.
Watch it later.
Yeah, he's so urine, he needs a catheter.
You're live.
Oh my
You're live.
Hey guys, once again, we're here with, what is this thing called again? SonoTalks. We're here with SonoTalks again.
You should have just been like, this is over. I'm out.